Inbound lead gen, outsourcing for growth. Inbound leads should be your easiest wins, but they aren't. Inbound leads are the prospects who already raise their hand, demo requests, pricing inquiries, and contact sales forms that should convert cleanly. In reality, many of those hand raises stall out because the operational basics break: slow follow-up, fuzzy ownership, and inconsistent qualification. When that happens, inbound doesn't feel high intent at all. It feels like a leaky bucket. The gap usually isn't your product or your marketing channel. It's the system that catches and advances inbound demand. If your team treats inbound like a side channel, prospects wait, go cold, or book with a competitor before you ever connect. And because inbound is often your highest intent traffic, every missed follow-up quietly inflates CAC and lowers forecast confidence. This is where sales outsourcing becomes a growth lever, not by replacing your strategy, but by protecting execution. When we build an inbound-ready motion with the right SDR coverage, strict SLAs, and measurable handoffs, inbound turns from random good luck into a predictable pipeline source that your AEs can rely on. Why inbound is your highest ROI pipeline source? Inbound and outbound are fundamentally different motions. Outbound is you creating demand. Inbound is you capturing demand that already exists. That intent advantage shows up clearly in conversion performance. Organic inbound leads convert around 14.6% versus about 1.7% for outbound sourced leads. When someone requests a demo, they're not browsing, they're evaluating. That's why inbound-first organizations are reported to be 13 times more likely to see positive marketing ROI than outbound-heavy peers. But the inbound-first part is operational, not philosophical. Your team has to treat inbound like a VIP lane with different routing, faster response expectations, and sharper qualification than a typical outbound sales agency sequence. Speed to lead is the KPI that quietly decides whether inbound prints revenue or just fills your CRM. Responding within 5 minutes can make you 21 times to 100 times more likely to connect and qualify than waiting 30 minutes or more, and about 78% of buyers purchase from the first vendor to respond. Yet average B2B response times still land in the 42 to 47-hour range, which is effectively donating deals to faster competitors. The business case for outsourcing inbound SDR execution. Hiring your way out of inbound coverage gaps is expensive and slow, especially when volume fluctuates. Fully loaded in-house SDR seats often run $9.8K to $14.2K per month once you include compensation, benefits, tools, management, and enablement. In contrast, outsourced SDR programs commonly land around $3K to $6.5K per month, which is typically 30 to 60% plus lower cost for comparable meeting output. At annual scale, that difference is hard to ignore. One estimate puts in-house SDR cost at $150K plus per year versus 40 to 50K for outsourced programs, up to a 63% cost reduction. The point isn't that outsourcing is cheap, it's that the right SDR agency can give you mature management, consistent coverage, and built-in process without you rebuilding the entire SDR org from scratch. Outsourcing is also mainstream now, not experimental. About 68% of B2B companies use third-party lead generation services in some capacity. And the outsourced B2B lead gen market is projected to grow from $2.66 billion 2024 to $7.33 billion by 2033, signaling that more teams are using specialized partners to stabilize pipeline performance. Keep strategy in-house, outsource the heavy lifting. The teams that win with an outsourced sales team don't outsource thinking, they outsource throughput. Your internal leaders should own ICP definition, segmentation, positioning, qualification standards, and what sales-ready means for your AEs. If you skip this step and outsource before your ICP and offer are clear, the partner is forced to guess, and you'll burn cycles on misaligned conversations. Where partners shine is operational execution, speed-to-lead coverage, multi-touch follow-up, consistent discovery, and clean handoffs into the calendar. In practice, that looks like a dedicated inbound lane with sub-5-minute response SLAs during business hours, a tight qualification script, and a clear routing rule for when to schedule an SDR discovery versus an AE meeting. This is also where a multi-channel team helps. Calls, email, and light social follow-up without turning inbound into a noisy outbound sequence. If you already work with a cold calling agency, cold email agency, or outbound sales agency, don't assume their inbound motion will be identical. Inbound requires a different rep profile and cadence, faster response, less pitch, more diagnosis, and sharper deal routing. The best partners treat inbound like a fast-track queue, not a leftover task behind cold calling services and other outbound work. Treat inbound like a VIP lane. Separate the queue, enforce sub-5-minute response, and measure success by revenue outcomes, not by how many leads entered the CRM. How to stand up a hybrid inbound engine. Start by segmenting inbound by intent so your team doesn't treat every form fill the same. Demo and pricing requests should route immediately to the fastest human touchpoint available, while lower intent conversions, like content downloads, can be nurtured until they demonstrate fit and urgency. The most common inbound mistake we see is blending high-intent inbound with low-intent outreach in one queue, which guarantees your best leads wait the longest. Next, design the handoff so it's measurable and repeatable. Define the first-touch SLA, the qualification questions, and the pass criteria to AEs. If you compensate an agency on raw MQL volume or a pay-per-appointment lead generation model with weak qualification, you'll get bloated pipelines and frustrated sellers. Instead, align on meetings held, opportunities created, and pipeline sourced so everyone optimizes for revenue quality. Finally, build a shared dashboard from day one across internal reps and your SDR partner. Track inbound volume, response time, contact rate, meeting rate, show rate, opportunity creation, and closed won by source and owner. Shared visibility reduces finger-pointing, accelerates iteration, and makes it obvious whether the constraint is routing, speed, qualification depth, or downstream closing. Best practices that protect speed and quality. Make response time a weekly reviewed metric, not a hope. If responding in 5 minutes can drive 21 times to 100 times better connection and qualification outcomes, then every hour of delay is measurable revenue loss. The goal is consistent coverage, not heroic effort, which is exactly why outsourcing inbound execution often outperforms ad hoc internal coverage. Treat follow-up as a system, not a single touch. Many teams do one call and one email and then move on, even though inbound prospects are often comparing multiple vendors at once. An outsourced SDR pod can run disciplined multi-touch sequences while your AEs stay focused on later-stage discovery, demos, and negotiation. Protect your brand by treating outsourced reps as part of your enablement program. Approve messaging, review call recordings, and run joint coaching so the conversations sound like your company, not generic telemarketing. The right B2B sales agency partner should feel like an extension of your team, with your standards and your tone, just faster and more consistent. Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. The fastest way to sabotage inbound is to ignore speed to lead because we don't have bandwidth. Buyers reward speed, and when average response times sit around 42 to 47 hours, being merely competent can be a competitive advantage. Fix it by assigning explicit ownership to the inbound queue and staffing coverage, internal, outsourced, or hybrid, so fast response is guaranteed, not optional. Another costly mistake is optimizing for lead volume instead of pipeline quality. When partners are measured on forms completed rather than opportunities created, they'll naturally drift toward easier conversions that don't close. Align incentives around meetings held, opportunities created, and closed-won revenue by source, and enforce tight qualification criteria that sales and marketing both sign off on. Finally, don't pick the cheapest provider and hope for the best. Low-skill cold callers using generic scripts can damage your brand and waste your highest intent demand, even if the retainer looks attractive. Evaluate SDR agencies on rep quality, management, tech stack, CRM integration, and proof in your category. Then negotiate around scope and outcomes, not just price. Optimization. Measure revenue outcomes, not activity. Once the engine is running, optimize like a revenue team, not a lead factory. Build reporting that ties inbound source and owner, internal versus outsourced, to meetings held, opportunities created, and closed-won revenue. Activity metrics still matter, but they're supporting indicators. Pipeline and revenue are the scoreboard. Use capacity management as a strategic advantage. Events, campaigns, and launches often create 4 to 8 week spikes that don't justify permanent headcount, which is where an outsourced sales team is at its best, ramping quickly and then scaling down without layoffs or hiring freezes. This is also where partners with broader capabilities, like list building services, LinkedIn outreach services, and B2B list building services, can help your team maintain coverage across channels without fragmenting vendors. If you need extra leverage, take a pilot and compare approach. Give the partner ownership of a defined segment for 90 days. Benchmark response time and meeting to opportunity conversion against your internal baseline, and keep iterating until performance is stable. Done right, outsourcing becomes a controlled experiment with clear ROI, not a leap of faith. Where this is going next and what we recommend. Inbound outsourcing is accelerating because the economics and buyer expectations keep pushing in the same direction. With the market projected to grow from $2.66 billion to $7.33 billion by 2033, more teams will standardize hybrid coverage models where strategy stays internal and execution scales through partners. The winners won't be the ones generating the most leads, they'll be the ones operationalizing the fastest, cleanest path from hand raise to revenue. At SalesHive, we see the strongest results when inbound is treated as a protected lane with strict SLAs and a shared scoreboard. Our infrastructure was built to run disciplined SDR execution, whether it's inbound qualification, outbound sequences, or multi-channel follow-up that combines email and calling. If you already rely on a cold calling team for outbound, extending that operational rigor to inbound is often the quickest way to unlock incremental revenue without rebuilding your org. The next step is simple. Document your current inbound funnel. Set a sub-5-minute response SLA for high-intent requests, and decide what stays in-house versus what a partner owns. When you treat inbound like a priority channel and measure it by opportunities and closed-won revenue, outsourcing stops being a cost decision and becomes a growth decision.